get started with our impact meeting. We have Rebecca Squires from Jefferson County, and I'll have her introduce herself, and we have Chief Dave Hanneman from the IFPD. Fire department, excuse me. Anyway, and we've asked them to come and kind of give us a glimpse of what might be happening here in Idaho Falls and just build up some awareness. Cheryl Williamson, she teaches we teach fire courses, and Dave Hanneman teaches for us, and we also have, emergency management courses and stuff like that. So it just kind of ties all in together, and it's all happening here in Idaho Falls. I live in the lake. Oh my gosh, I'm not coming to work that day, so we'll just turn the time over to these guys and ask lots of questions, and hopefully we can make a decision whether we come to school on the 21st of August or not.
So it's titled Community Impacts, but maybe it's should we come to school or work, right? That's really the thing here. Okay, my name is Rebecca Squires. I am the emergency manager in Jefferson County. We are excited for the Total Solar Eclipse of August 21st. So I want to get to know you guys just a little bit. Let's see, so faculty, how many of you are faculty? Okay, great. Students? Okay, awesome. I'm a little nervous, got the student of the year in here. First responders or training to be first responders? Okay, a few of you. And community leaders? All right. So some of you didn't raise your hand, and I'm like, why are you scared? Staff and administration. Oh, there we go, the backbone of any institution of higher learning. Oh, forgive me. Okay, I got to measure how much cord I have so I don't hang myself with it. There we go. Chief, do you want to introduce yourself now, or do you want to wait until I finish my thing?
I'll introduce myself. So, thank you. I'm, as said earlier, I'm Dave Hanneman, Fire Chief here in Idaho Falls. I'm also the incident commander for our Regional 3 Incident Management Team. And so we'll talk a little bit later about how we're handling this from a regional approach, which is actually talking about 8 counties in this region. So we'll talk about that in the planning. But thank you. And as mentioned before, I'm one of the instructors here at college.
Did you raise your hand as faculty? Just one. All right, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the science lesson. We know that a total solar eclipse happens when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, and the moon is positioned correctly so that the entire disk of the sun is blacked out. And it's interesting to note that when a solar eclipse happens, the moon casts 2 shadows. There's the penumbra, which is the lighter shadow. And how many in here have seen a partial solar eclipse? Probably most of us. Anybody remember the eclipse of 1979? I was really, really young, and I remember thinking, they told us, oh, there'll be a total eclipse in 2017, I guess. And I remember thinking, I'll be an old lady. Here I am. Okay, so being in the penumbra is cool, and it'll be on the news and everything, but being in that umbral shadow is even better. In that umbra, the entire sun's disk is blocked out, and that's the only time that you can view the beautiful corona, or the outer atmosphere of the sun. We're feeding back a lot. Okay. All right, you can read that. A total eclipse is a big deal. At 99%, like what they'll see in Boise, that's not totality. 100% is what you want. Without 100%, you don't experience those things. A 360-degree sunset, how cool is that? If you look at the ground will have little waves on it, like the bottom of a swimming pool. Bailey's beads, I'm really excited to see that one. Just as the sun becomes completely obscured, the moon isn't a perfect circle, it has hills and valleys. And the last bits of sunshine will shine through those deep valleys on the moon and give us the appearance of what we call Bailey's beads. That's something you see in totality. Well, you'll see it at 99% too, but totality is what we want to see. When you view the corona, if there's a prominence like a coronal mass ejection or some kind of solar activity, you can watch that. And nobody knows what it's going to look like until you actually see it. It's not something that can be forecast. All right, so in Rigby, and it'll be very similar here in Idaho Falls, about 10:15 in the morning, you have see people start crying out, C1, C1, and that means that the sun's disk is just starting to be obscured, and it'll look like a cookie with a bite taken out of it. Until about 11:33 in the morning, you'll see Bailey's beads that I talked about, and then you'll see this diamond ring. Now, anytime until you see that diamond ring, you've got to wear eye protection. Otherwise, has anybody ever burned their eyes welding? That's a corneal sunburn, or corneal burn. That's what you'd experience if you watched the sun for any length of time, and you don't want to experience that. It hurts. So once you see the diamond ring, you can take off your glasses. And if you kept your glasses on, you wouldn't see totality. It'd be too dark. But you can take off your glasses and view totality. Here in Idaho Falls, it's about 1:40 seconds. Up in Rigby, 2 minutes 12 seconds. I believe the highest in Idaho is about 2 minutes 20 seconds if you're right on that center line. But anywhere in the path of totality, you will get some length of time in which you'll be able to view the corona. And then again, we're completely done at about 2 in the afternoon. Okay, I know you can't read the text there. This is from the website greatamericaneclipse.com, and it shows great places to see the eclipse. And there's the Snake River Plain in Idaho as one of those fantastic places. And why do we love the Snake River Plain? You know, we run out of hotels and campsites pretty fast. Has anybody ever been here in August? Hot, dry, sunny weather, right? Perfect for viewing an eclipse, because the single most important thing is to be able to see it. You can't have clouds. So clouds, rainy weather, that's why the east side of the United States, they'll be seeing it in the afternoon, and it gets cloudy there. And if you've ever been to the Appalachians or the Ozark Mountains, and you want to drive somewhere really fast, you're going up and down and side to side and side, and it's really hard to get somewhere quickly if you're trying to escape some local clouds. Here we've got long, straight roads. So in Idaho, the total eclipse path, the Snake River Plain is the only populated area in Idaho that receives totality. It misses Boise, Ada County, Caldwell, that whole area. If you live in Boise, you'd probably drive up to Garden City to see it. It passes over Mount Bora, so anybody going to hike Mount Bora that day? It'd be a good time. Right through, you can see Bonneville County and Idaho Falls. You can see Jefferson County following right along Highway 33. Congratulations, Debbie. You get the center line, right? And many eclipse chasers, and that's what we call them as eclipse chasers, they want to be on that center line because that gives them the longest time to view totality. And for many people, it's a spiritual experience. For some, it's just a weird, trippy experience. For some, it's a scientific, oh my goodness, how did I see that experience? So for every person, it means something different. But I've heard, because I haven't experienced it before, I've heard once you've seen your first total eclipse, you're online looking for the next one because it's really something spectacular. All right, so chances of clouds, we've talked about this. Average chances of clouds in the Snake River Plain, that's the dark yellow part, about 30% chance of clouds that day, 35% on the average. So we know what August is like here. Okay, people always ask, how many people do you really expect? The best estimation I've heard is what's in yellow up at the top there. Every confirmed person you know is coming, expect 5. So, what do you think for Idaho Falls? How many do you think we know are coming?
For right here?
Yep.
150,000 extra people.
Wow.
Times 5. Okay, so in Jefferson County, our planning horizon is between 30 and 100,000. I know that's a big span, but that's what we're planning for. So the population of our county is about 28,000. So we will look to double our population and possibly quadruple it. So what does that tell you? You know, those of you who start thinking emergency response, what does that tell you about impact? This is where you participate.
It's going to be big.
Traffic.
Yes, that's a big impact.
Fire.
Fire hazard, right. Wildland fire. You know, what's the height of our wildland fire season? August. I just talked to Idaho Department of Lands. August 21st statistically is the day where we start the most fires. Okay,
It
other
happened
things.
to be the same day that our Henry Creek's fire was going. last year too.
Okay, so wildland fire, traffic concerns.
Emergency
Groceries.
response, ambulances, police force.
Right, because we have our day-to-day response.
There are going to be accidents.
Yes,
There are going to be injuries.
yes, and I heard something over here.
Food supply.
Food, hey, food. So if you are a local resident, I'm assuming most of you are, you know, maybe in the week before, you'd want to make sure your gas tank's full, make sure the fridge is full, you know, get those things ahead of time so so that when the crowds come, you don't have to worry about it. That might be a good thing to do. If you're expecting, how many of you are expecting company at your homes that day? Yeah, like all the relatives from Utah are coming up? I might even get some from California. Oh, kitty. So if you're expecting a house full and you're on a septic system, maybe have the septic tank pumped before you have that crowd arrive. There's impacts everywhere. So, and we'll talk a little more about that in a few minutes. But you've probably read that. This is not a 2.5-minute event, folks. It's not even a 3-hour event. Most people that come, most chasers that I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of chasers, they will arrive 2 to 3 days ahead of time. So that planning horizon needs to be probably a week before to a few days after when they all leave and go to Yellowstone Park. Okay, and you're not going to find me in Yellowstone that week. All right, so in fact, August 22nd, catatonic in a corner probably. Our approach to planning has been a hazards-based approach. So the first thing we do is we have a little brainstorm, like we just had here, identifying those risks and hazards, identifying threats and hazards. From there, we go into risks. So running out of t-shirts is probably a threat. That's not really going to impact us that much, right? So how severe and how likely are those things to happen? You know, we can pretty much count on cell service going down. That's very, very likely. So, and what's the impact? That's pretty severe. So that's one of our big risks that we are looking to mitigate in several different ways. And then once we determine our risk, we create plans based on those steps in emergency management. Prepare, prevent, mitigate, respond, recover. Identifying our resources, and then where we have gaps, and we're going to have some gaps, how do we call upon our mutual aid, regional coordination, and resource requests outside of our mutual aid? How do we fill our gaps in our response? Okay, Chief, this is you.
I got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So landlines, telephone lines, is that going to be impacted?
Should be safe. Should be safe. How many still have a landline? I'm not like telephone co-op, I know.
Is it rotary kind of?
It used to be, now it's push button. But we're on our own co-op.
Chief, I need you to have
So
that.
we have a nice little dividend at the end of the year or so, which is awesome. They pay us to be in the emergency.
My folks do that too. It's like,
It's awesome.
our landline is crazy.
I know, we don't give it up. It's probably $1,800.
So this is just for that.
That's for the video. Yeah, that's for the
Well,
phones.
okay.
That's your machine.
So a couple of things about the impacts, as Rebecca said. So we have to take an approach of all the potential things that can go wrong, and so let's talk about a few of them. So what do you think the impact to public health is? They're concerned about 3 things. What do you think those are?
Water.
Water's 1, yeah.
Sanitation.
Sanitation's 2. And somebody mentioned this earlier, it's food. One of the big things they're worried is that vendors are going to just pop up everywhere because all the people are around, and there's no way to inspect that food or make sure that it's okay. So those are the 3 things that we have to look at. I heard about traffic. So when we plan for this, what we have to do is plan for contingencies. In other words, what do we think is going to happen? And then what are all the bad things that can happen? And as a fire chief and my team, we're disaster planners. So we look at worst case scenarios. So we may have 300 to 500,000 more people in our whole region. What we have to figure out is what are they going to be doing and what if something goes bad. So if you think about that, for example, traffic, that was mentioned before. So we have law enforcement members on our team, and we have we're working with ITD, which isn't a great time right now if you look at Interstate 15 and all the plans for the construction. But we have got guarantees from them that that's not going to be going on that particular day or that weekend. So we also have to, what happens if we have 500,000 people here and they all want to leave about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on the 21st? And that would mean if they all got in line, we'd have a line from here to Utah on the freeway. So one of our options, can we make the freeway one way? Yes, it's possible. So we just got to coordinate that, and that can be a contingency plan. Same thing with our highways. We also need to look at where the venues are. So if you think about some of the communications that Rebecca talked about, so we anticipate, based upon our research in other places around the country where this has occurred, that our cell phones are going to go down. So we have to have a contingency plan for what we're going to do with our radio systems, how our first responders are going to communicate, how our cell phones, if we're not going to have that, what will we be able to do? So that's part of our planning process as well. We talked about transportation. Sanitation, we have kind of an extra thought about sanitation because some counties, including Jefferson, decided to make farms allowable to have campers on them. So now the farms are campgrounds. So sanitation's probably a little bit of an issue there. My community, Idaho Falls, has decided to take 2 of our major parks. By the way, we'll talk a little more about it because one of them surrounds the campus here. Freeman and Toffus Park are now going to be campgrounds that weekend. So they will be full of campers. So that brings in some sanitation issues that we have to look at as well. The fire danger in the public lands, that's another concern that we have. We're working with our partners with the Department of Lands, BLM, and the Forest Service. The land management agencies like that, we also have intel that a lot of people are coming from out of the country to spend time on public lands. Over by Manan, in those areas, we talked about Mount Bora, places like that. That's going to be on some public lands. So they have a lot of concern about that as well. I don't know if you've seen the media coverage that Casper, Wyoming is doing, but they're literally trying to draw folks into Wyoming from all over the world and making a big deal, like flying to Denver and come up to Casper, and they're making a big PR thing out of it, because that's going to be one of the nice places in the country to do as well. The other thing that we're worried about, as mentioned before, is wildfire. So we're going to be asking all of our county commissioners in this region to have a burn ban going on right then, which means farmers and others can't have burning going on, because the last thing we need is a wildfire with all the people in town. The slow response times, our EMS, what we have to do is how we're kind of approaching our emergencies. Our incident management team is going to be running what we call area command. And so the 4 main counties that the totality occur in around here where the population is Teton, Jefferson, Madison, and Bonneville. And so each one of those are going to have a command structure and their emergency responders watching what's going on. And then we're all going to be coordinating to understand where all the people are going to be. And that's going to be based upon venues. In other words, if a certain Saturday night in Idaho Falls at Sandy Downs, there's a concert. So we'll know how many people are going to be there. If something's going on in Madison County, we'll know where the people are. So the normal chain of events, we're going to have situational awareness of where everybody is. Now, if you bring 500,000 people into the whole region, all the day-to-day things that happen to 500,000 people are going to occur. So for example, our 60,000 people here, or 100,000 that we have or so in our area for EMS, we have 8 ambulances in service every day, and we have so many heart attacks, so many strokes, so many fall victims, so many babies being delivered. Well, if you increase our population by 3-fold or 4-fold, those things are just going to occur more often. And that's if nothing's going wrong, right? So we also have to plan for how we spread our folks out. So for example, our ambulances here in Bonneville County cover Rebecca's county too, in Jefferson. So we have to determine, are we going to stretch out our resources to be able to do that? But we're doing a lot of coordination. If you look at Bannock County and Pocatello, they're going to be working with us so that we can call for resources down there. And Bannock is going to have a different approach to this. They are not in the line of totality, but a lot of people are going to be staying in Pocatello and then driving up in the morning. And a lot of people are going to come up from Salt Lake because it's a morning drive, right? So they may come up the day before that as well. So we're going to try to address the response times as best we can. And as Rebecca said, mitigation is the best thing that we can do with this, is look at putting things in place and hope for the best. There's always got to be a hope a little bit in this too, right? That we hope that we really aren't going to get 500,000 people here. Maybe it's going to be 50,000, and we overplanned it. That would be great. So part of me hopes it's like Y2K, where we thought the world was going to end and it didn't. So, but we have to kind of look at those issues as well. The government agencies, when you think about the impacts, the government agencies are focused on public safety. So we're not worrying too much about where the vendors are going to be, other than where the people are going to be. So as far as commerce, that's not a big concern for us. We want to make sure everybody is safe and okay. And again, we need to know where they are. People are constantly asking us about, again, how many people are coming. The only way we can tell is the intelligence we're receiving about where all the people are staying. So if it's not available anymore, but last month, if you were trying to get a room at Motel 6 here in town, it was $950 a night. And most of the hotels are requiring 3 or 4 night stays. If you look on Craigslist, you'll notice that backyards are going for $1,000 a night, or somebody's camper who's sitting next to their house is going for a sweet penny as well. So that's the intel that we're picking up, that all these people are coming in. Idaho Falls also, and the state injected a little bit and said that we need to allow Airbnb to occur too. So our 3-bedroom home may have 20 people in it because people are going to come for that Airbnb that weekend as well. And there's no regulation on it. So those are concerns for us as well, where all the people might be. So that's the intel that we're getting. You can see some of the other things. Why is language barrier a problem?
They're coming from all over.
Yeah, they're coming from all over, including Europe. So if we start having patients, Manan Butte is an example, if we start having patients on those public lands, we got to be able to figure out how to communicate to them. And hopefully they will have some interpreters, but we're not sure. So foreign currency is another issue. We talked about food safety. One of the things, access to care. The hospitals are all being put on notice. They're not letting, I know ERMIC is talking about not letting any of its staff off that day. So we're anticipating some of those kind of additional problems. The contingency plans, we have those in place as well. So we have plans for mass casualty events. So say something does happen bad in Rigby, where there's a mass casualty event and we have 25 people or 100 people hurt, we have those plans to be able to do that. Now I say 25 to 100, that doesn't sound very much when we could have thousands and hundreds of thousands here, but in our neck of the woods, about 5 or 6 patients is a mass casualty to us. That starts stressing our systems pretty well. We talked about the internet going down. Civil unrest and crime and terrorism. That's something when we have more people, we have to look at that. We do have some intel that those of you that know what Burning Man is, that happens in the Nevada desert, that is the weekend after. So we do have intel that people may be up here and then go down to that. We don't know what they're going to do. We're a little worried about INL, and that most of us that live around here know that you just aren't supposed to wander out in the desert. And there's not a lot of signs out there, but whether INL is going to close up shop, put up some more signs that, hey, don't wander out into the desert, you might run into some people with guns. So that's a concern as well. And there's a lot of, again, unknowns that are there. The best we can do is plan for this and look at how we can mitigate it, make sure that we have enough resources as best we can. Public budgets is up here. None of the government agencies budgeted for any more additional resources. So we talked about this last year, but it was really about the fall that we started ramping up. That's about right.
Right after the budget was approved.
Yeah. So, and a lot of us, myself included, but I was kind of a little naive on what this meant until I had my first presentation with an astronomer and somebody from NASA. And they started telling us all this, and we started to learn the science more about it, and it was like, oh, okay, I get it. We're going to have a lot of people. And we haven't been, our elected officials tried to go to the state and get some help with the state legislature as far as funding. That didn't work. So we have the potential of having disasters and then get reimbursed for that afterwards. But can't remember if it's on the next slide, but so one way we're doing it, and you saw this on the slide before, is that we're taking a local approach, then regional, then state. So how we do that is our local approach is those 4 counties predominantly that will have the people in them, although we might have to address Custer County, which is where Mount Bora is. They're going to have their own structures. Our area command is going to have situational awareness where everybody's going to be. And then if one county starts to have a problem, we're going to be able to draw from the other parts of the 8 counties to get them some help through all of our mutual aid agreements. Then if it goes beyond that, if it goes beyond our region and our mutual aid agreements for all of our responders, then we will go through our emergency managers like Rebecca, and then they will trigger help from the state. And the state will be poised to help us as well. And we're already going to be having some state resources over in this region too. Our civil support team, which is a state asset, will be available to us. So we'll have some of those as well. Do you have more to add?
You got it. Good job.
Any questions about any of that stuff that we're doing?
Are you going to be working with any of the community volunteer services?
Yeah, we've done a good question. So as far as volunteer groups, BOAD and other groups, they've approached us, and I've had some presentations with them about how they can help. And a lot of that might be helping with the water situation. One of our fears in a contingency is if we do end up having a big long line of people, so it's going to take several hours to get out of here, on August 21st, they're going to be hot, and can we get them some water? And so coordinating that activity is a good effort from that. Now that's just here. Each county is going to be kind of doing their own thing with that as well. And there's a lot of events going on. Teton's got a bike race going on at the same time for some reason.
Could you speak a little more about the effects on internet and cell phone service? I'm a little unclear about, I mean, this is not an astrological event that's going to affect the service, it's just...
No, it's a people
of
event. So what NASA and others have told us that in other places when this occurs, expect the internet to go down, mostly because we're going to overrun it. People are going to use their cell phones and try to video the eclipse to send it to people. And once you start doing that with a bandwidth, that you're going to have a problem. So we're anticipating that everybody's going to try to send it to everybody else to say, hey, look what's happening here, right? Rebecca also talked about the significance of that. So remember that 99% eclipse is still light outside. 100% is dark. So that's the big difference of literally night and day. So that's what's going to drive people to do that. We don't think there's going to be a whole lot of people on their home phones necessarily. It's going to be that internet service out there. We're also worried, from my perspective, it would be nice that during that 2 minutes, which doesn't seem like it's a whole long time, that we could put out the message, everybody just stop what they're doing, literally, stop. And so what we're afraid of and what we've seen in other countries is people start running in their cars into each other because some people stop and they get out of their car and others don't, and they run into them. So we're hoping that 2 minutes, everybody can just mellow out and stop. So, and then continue after that. So we're also worried about, part of the unknowns is about enforcing our regular laws. So for example, if you've been around here on the 4th of July, you'll notice that we, although it's changing this year, but the venue that we had on the river, we would close down our off-ramps on coming off of Interstate 15, right? And people literally sat with their blankets on the on-ramps and off-ramps. Well, that's not normally legal, so that's a problem for us if people just start literally doing that everywhere. So we have to watch out for that. And there's only going to be so much ability to enforce what we can, so we'll have to prioritize that. Good question. Other questions?
So I have heard, just gossip level, that a lot of the freeway and the highways are going to be closed for people to just park and watch. That's not the case?
Well, we sure haven't talked to them about it. You know, we're coordinating with ISP and ITD about that in our region. There's going to be, throughout the summer, you know, there's a lot of construction on I-15. There's several spots where that, and if you've seen the paper, that's already caused some accidents. So we're hoping just that that's going to be avoided that weekend, but we don't have any plans of letting people just stop on the freeway. That would, to stop the whole freeway is one thing. We want to keep it moving and getting people out as best we can. We also have to figure out how to get to them. If there's a big traffic jam, our ambulances might not be able to go down on the freeway. So we're borrowing ATVs to take our paramedics down the freeways to be able to do that. And we're pre-positioning helicopters so that we can land helicopters to pick up people if we have to as well. So we'll have a couple extra helicopters in our region.
So one other question, she was talking about the volunteer agencies. Where are you, are you figuring that like Freeman Park area will be a central spot, and if there were volunteer agencies or anything, this would be the place to do something? Or is it going to just be taken over the whole town and anywhere will be a good spot?
So between now and August, what we're trying to do, and I think all the cities and the counties are trying to figure out what events they're going to be having. We have a couple planned here. I don't know if Rigby's got something going on yet, but so everybody's trying to figure out their venues, and then that's where the people are going to be. The parks and the camping are really going to be just for that. So the chasers, if you remember what Rebecca said, the chasers will try to go to that midline. That's their favorite place. So there'll be a lot of people up in her area. And where's the exact midline? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah,
It's right
it,
north.
It falls
of,
Highway 33 and then passes between, I think it's 33 and then passes between 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 33 and then passes bet
Highway 33 over Manan Butte, over the Thornton area, through Archer, and then across over the Teton Valley, and it actually goes right over the Tetons.
So for most people, the difference between 1 minute and 33 seconds and 2 minutes 12 isn't going to be a huge deal, but for the chasers, that's what they're going to be aiming for. So I think in Idaho Falls, it's 1 minute and 33 seconds long. So there's not a large gap from that. We also, it's going through Jackson, so we also anticipate that there may be some connection, and our ambulances meet up with their ambulances to take people to Urmix. So we'll have some issues over there too. You will not be able to, talking about clouds, you won't be able to outrun it. In other words, you can't drive fast enough that you're going to. People may try, but you can't really do that. So we'll see how that goes.
Right, I guess just a couple of questions, a little bit of follow-up, and I know we have other questions going on as well. Volunteer agencies. For Jefferson County, yes, absolutely, and we'll talk about some of our planning approaches in just a couple minutes, but we are looking to our amateur radio community as backup communications. We actually have an amateur radio station in our sheriff's office. Ermac, for example, has an amateur radio station, and they will provide backup communications for us. So working under the umbrella of the ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Service, working under that umbrella, those groups are planning out their approach, their frequencies, and they'll be setting up operational nets for the weekend of the eclipse. We're also looking towards our CERT organization to help provide support in the sheriff setting up substations that'll be manned with communications, EMS, law enforcement, and then our CERT folks will be there as well to kind of help handle, hey, I'm too hot, I need a drink of water, or, here, I have a bee sting, let me help you with that. Just helping to handle the small things so that our responders are free to work with the big things. There was another question.
So did the campus decide if they're still having that first day of school or not?
That's why
They haven't
nobody haven't decided yet. Really learned this year.
Yeah, so I would tell you that there's going to be a lot of people around you, no doubt. And these are going to be out-of-town campers who are going to be here. So our Parks and Rec are going to be trying to manage that, but Freeman Park is a very big park, one of our biggest. And so that the traffic is going to be an issue, and if they all stay here for that morning and want to view it here, then there's going to be a mass exodus between when totality ends and then the whole thing is over. So that whole it's going to be a mess from about 10 to the late afternoon. So if that helps you make your decision about the campus.
Well, and is there going to be someone enforcing people not parking in our parking lot and stuff like that? That's, I mean.
Garth is on his own.
Yeah.
And so, and that's one of the things that, I'll come right back to you, that's one of the things that our law enforcement is looking at very closely is, okay, speeding tickets. Well, as long as we keep those right-of-ways open, parking, how do you handle that? They're just, yeah, it'd be nice to enforce every rule and every law and keep everybody, nice and orderly, but do we have the manpower to accomplish that? What does it take to enforce the parking regulations, just the parking, here at the campus?
Well, and that was mostly not but for the fact of, should we be open? I mean, our parking lot is going to be full of campers and whatnot.
I think that the approach that has been recommended is that whatever you do, try to take a proactive approach to it. So if you look at part of the idea of having venues is that if you can direct people to this place. So for Idaho Falls, having 2 parks as a venue is to say that we want people to go there so we know where the people are and they don't necessarily go everywhere else. So we have no control over them. The same thing I would suggest with parking or whatever it is. If you are going to have parking, then direct the parking that you want and don't try to enforce than parking that you don't want. Try to be more proactive, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So if you guide people into where you want them to be, I think that would be a better thing. Same thing with your employees. If your employees, if you're saying that, hey, everybody can go outside and all your students at that time, and where are you going to put them? So don't just, let it happen, because then you won't have much control over it. But if you say, hey, everybody, we're going to do this, here's where we're going to go, it might be a little better for you to control things.
Okay, we have question 1, 2, and 3.
I was wondering if in other areas, after the eclipse is done, do people stay that night, or do you think people are going to kind of clear out of town that day after it's done?
From what I'm viewing, kind of a mixed bag. For some venue planning may include activities after the eclipse to let people hang on a little bit longer and avoid the traffic going out. But at Jefferson County Lake, for example, we are booked the entire weekend before, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and most of our folks are staying over Tuesday, but Wednesday is a ghost town right now.
I think if you look at the 2 national parks, they're already booked all the way through then, so you're going to have a lot of people who will come from there and then go back to the park to finish their vacation, I think.
Debbie had a
My
question.
concern was if, being here at work as staff or student or faculty, there's only one way of getting in here and one way of getting out. And my concern is you have a bottleneck trying to get in and out of cars. When we have a Tiger Grizz or any type of track meet parked on both sides of the road, it's going to be, my thing is safety concerns getting in and out of this parking lot.
Yeah, there's going to be some more Parks and Rec people that will be managing the park and stuff. I'll find that out, but we would want our law enforcement to coordinate with yours to handle that, because that will be an issue. And we want to make sure there's not bottlenecks, because if we need to get our emergency services in to help somebody, we got to get in. So,
Question.
I guess mine was half a comment, a little bit like Nancy's. I was thinking too, what do we know from other places where total eclipses happen? And then I was just thinking about our much more minor version, but it's a big deal here, when the Southeast Idaho State Fair happens. I think about what happens to Blackfoot, and what have we learned from managing that, influx of people, traffic-wise, in terms of, signage on roads and closing on-ramps and that kind of thing.
we are going to have a regional traffic plan. So but that's going to be the main highways and the freeways and so forth. Each county is going to have to manage their own getting in and out of a particular venue. So it's going to be ugly. So I don't know how to make it. We're going to try to make that a little bit better. And maybe Rebecca has something else on the other thing, but what the astronomers told us, they gave us a story. I think you were there for that one. But the last one he went to was in, it was over in Asia.
Indonesia, right?
In Indonesia, yeah. And they said that, and they had a multi-lane, very big freeway system over there, and they all went to this reservoir, and it took them, I think he said 45 minutes to get there and get everybody in, and 10 hours to get out. And that was with a big system to get out. And so that's what he was warning us about 15, saying that, hey, if people are going to go all the way to Utah, you're going to have a problem there. So we're trying to manage that as best we can.
And we have had some communication as well with some of the other communities around the nation. Eastern Oregon, Illinois, in Wyoming, Jackson, and kind of looking at their plans. Hey, what are you doing? I don't know. What are you doing? And so we've been sharing plans and ideas back and forth, and it's been very helpful. And then when I try to wrap my mind around it, I have to go with things I know. And so I think, okay, Idaho Falls fireworks, okay, plus the state fair, and we're going to move them both to Rigby. Okay, got it. So that's kind of how I start to relate to it and start considering the problems we might consider. But again, we just go right back to our threats and hazards-based approach and what the risks are, and start trying to mitigate planning, prevention, and how we respond.
I think another comment about that is my counterparts, I've talked to some of those around the country as well, and there's not a set way everybody's doing this. I'm pretty pleased about how we are using our resources for emergency management and all our responders to try to plan. A fire chief in Columbia, Missouri, I talked to about a month ago, and they're in the center of the country. They're in the center of the totality and very close to Kansas City. And so they're going to get a lot of people, and they literally said they're going to wing it. They're not planning at all. And so and he wasn't really happy about it, but that's what the determination was going to be. So.
Another concern we have when we want to keep the campus open is that once people discover that we have restrooms, we have a cafeteria, you know, are we going to be inundated with the public and security issues and everything?
You know, that's a very good comment, and that's come up a couple times in talking with commerce and the tourism industry in the region, because there is some examples of that if you are, say, on Broadway or some place like that, and you have an establishment that has a restroom, people are going to be out everywhere and expect to go in and use your facilities. And so are you planning for that? And it may be good in that you're also going to get some business out of it, but there's going to be a lot of people looking for that as well.
I'll just basically step out on a limb as the public safety director. I don't see the feasibility of us staying open right now. I don't think that we will have any learning going on. I think that we basically need to set up we just need to close, and we need to designate mission essential personnel who need to be here to keep our campus safe. We know that, as you stated, Ann, people are going to use our bathrooms. It's going to be hot, so they're going to come into our buildings to stay cool. The students probably won't even show up. Maybe some of the faculty members won't show up. And we just need to just make a decision that we're just not going to be open, and make sure that we have the personnel here. Open up our emergency operations center so that we can work with the area commands and with the other different players here. But traffic, that's going to be a major problem. I just don't see that we have the human resources to manage this. I agree with you in terms of being proactive and stating, are we going to even allow people to camp here overnight? We need to look at porta pots. We need to look at water stations. We need to look at all those different factors. But to me, it's almost a no-brainer that we should not be open on that first day of class, and then students don't always come the first day of class anyway. Then my phone's going to be ringing off the hook about why didn't we close. I just don't think
Cell service with data will be fine.
then there's no intranet, so how can we even do our mission essential functions with payroll and all those different things that need to probably go on? We have no intranet. We can't even talk. We're looking at satellite phones.
To follow up what you're just saying, so if you take that approach, the campus is closed, then you need to decide what you're going to do with your parking lot.
Right.
Whether you close it or try to put a big wall around your whole campus, those kind of things. Remember also that people may go on to private property, but all these people are going to leave a lot of trash afterwards. So there's going to be a cleanup period afterwards as well, and that's part of why we were wanting to coordinate that kind of thing and control it. But our Public Works has talked, and I don't know if yours has as well, but our Public Works have literally talked about putting those big garbage dispensers just on corners everywhere in our city, because it's going to be, so much of the people leaving that stuff around. So who was the other guy?
Is there like any websites or anything that the cities or the state is setting up for, just for information as far as this,
Right there.
Take a picture.
Yeah, so The EI Eclipse is Eastern Idaho Eclipse, and that was generated here in Idaho Falls with, and also with the Post Register, and then brought in Jefferson County as well. You can see Rebecca's website there with Jefferson and Rexburg's got one. The Great American Eclipse is where the graphics were pulled off of, and that is the national one, and it's you can go to Idaho and, on a pull-down menu and then see that swath that goes through Idaho. The other resource that's not up there, and you can Google that, is NASA has a pretty good site too. And NASA's going to be here in Idaho Falls for that weekend as well, because they're doing some monitoring, and they're also going to be, part of them are doing monitoring and part of them are doing education with the Museum of Idaho.
So anything for like the Idaho Falls or just this, just this immediate area besides?
The eieclipse.com has got all the Idaho Falls specific on it. Yeah, and the venues will be there too. It's supposed to, everybody's supposed to be putting the venues of where the people would be. The chamber has requested, although I'm not sure where that's at now, about having some chamber event going on that weekend as well with vendors and so forth. And if you saw the paper recently, the Chamber's not doing their Liberty Festival anymore on the 4th, so that's going to be moved down to Snake River Landing on the 4th in a different kind of venue. So they're probably going to be doing some event there that's not been decided.
So the rumors are that all the hotels in Idaho Falls, Rigby, Rexburg are full. Is that
What I'm hearing.
That's
That's what I'm hearing.
A lot of backyards too. I think that there's still some holdouts that are trying to get a 3 or 4 night stay, $1,000 a night kind of deal. There's some of those hotels are still trying to do some of those. Last time I talked to the tourism group, but for the most part, yeah, that's how it is. There hasn't been a lot of requests for the farmland, and part of that, I think, is because of the permits and stuff that have to go through. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, do you want me to address that?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Jefferson County, and each community, each county handles things a little bit differently, but we have, the commissioners looked through our ordinances and said, okay, how can we handle this? What can we do? And so in Jefferson County, individuals can rent their private property, but we are asking for an administrative permit. We waive the fee for that permit, and we take these permits and people give us a site map and proof that they own the place, it's kind of important. And then we vet those plans with fire, law enforcement, and public health, so that if there's a problem that, we can't get a truck around there, or you need to number those sites so we know where the heart attack is, that kind of thing. So once we vet those permits and offer the permit, then we go ahead and post their information on our website. And so we're just getting our first batch of permits vetted right now. And what we do get calls about people looking for accommodation. I direct them to the website, say, hey, here's some places that still have spots, go look there. And so that's where we list, private individuals. I get calls from people internationally looking for places. Pitching tents is the hardest one. If you've not tried to rent a porta potty lately, let me know how that goes, because I'm hearing that people are having to go, hundreds of miles away to rent a porta potty, and a lot of them are just buying them to bring them in. So how they're servicing them, I'm not sure, but so that's one of the concerns on sanitation. But there has been some demand, just it hasn't been huge yet because we're just not quite set up, but it's coming. Other questions?
It can become an ophthalmologist's nightmare. You have 500,000 people and just 100 of them don't have adequate eye protection. Is anything being done to make sure people are informed? And there's probably a run on number 12 welders glasses.
So there are some places around the country selling these, and there are local groups that have purchased it. The Chamber bought like 25,000. The Museum of Idaho bought a similar number. I know a lot of cities are buying them for all their employees. They range from about 50 cents to $1, depending on how many you get, and probably even cheaper than that if you get a lot more bulk. what we plan on doing is each of the counties are going to be doing some public information about when to wear the glasses and when to take them off. And then regionally, we're going to be doing that public safety messages throughout. And then also, we're gearing up our hospitals and our providers to help with if you do have some other, if you have some injury, what do you do for the eyes? But we anticipate that that's going to be a problem. So.
I was just wondering what like citizens can do to prepare for this and like what we should be doing that day. Like as a student, I'm going to be expected to be on Coca-Cola that day. But then when you talk about the interstates getting reversed like all one way, I'm like, oh, should I even go? Like what do you think?
Well, you know, we appreciate everybody coming up to that, so I think it's a good thing to see, but you'd want to be here before all the stuff happens. And so, and you know, be prepared as far as what water, be prepared for the temperatures that are happening, and of course your eyeglasses that are there. And then have a plan of what if it does take me, so don't be expected to be back in Pocatello by 2 in the afternoon. You know, plan that time out. So, but it's a good thing. We also have somebody, I don't know if I told you this, but we have a production company out of Los Angeles doing a documentary on it, and they're actually coming up this weekend to do some interviews of some different people. And their goal is to educate people about the eclipse and draw more people up here, because it's going to be aired. It's going to be aired before it happens. So, so I told them that we don't really need that. But,
I do. I have actually the state dinner writing on whether or not this is a YGK event. So I'm throwing us.
Yeah, so there is a documentary going to be happening on it. It's getting more, as we get closer, it's getting more buzz too. Like I said before, it was just on our radar last fall. It's not been on the state's radar until most recently, where we convinced them that the state took an approach early on that this was simply a tourism event and not really serious, and we didn't need to think of it from an emergency management standpoint. But now we've all convinced them that that's not true, and so they are ramping up to be able to help when it's needed. And again, as Rebecca said, it's not just here. I think we have the biggest population area and the easiest transit to get up to it, but it's going to go through Weiser, it's going to go through Emmett, it's going to go through parts of Sun Valley in that area. So there's other parts in the state that have some people. Boise is, people are going to go up to Garden Valley or to Emmett to see it. So, and people in Oregon may cross the border a little bit too. So we'll see some other activities around the state. We just think we're going to have the most just because of the close proximity to Utah. That's what NASA told us, that to expect, you know, a lot of the population of Utah to come up because it's a, you know, half-day drive and they can get here pretty quick. So.
Has INL indicated what they're going to do with their buildings on the inside of town? Normally they'll just barricade them off and keep people away. I was just wondering if they're...
No, you know, we have a person from the INL Fire Department on our incident management team, but I just talked a little bit about what they're going to do out in the desert with keeping people out there. I don't know what they're going to do here.
Can you talk to us a little bit about when we should put the glasses on? Give us that aware so we know. And our grandchildren are looking up and it's like, oh, you got to put the glasses on?
So if you want to look at the sun when it's starting to go into partial eclipse, that's the time to have it on.
So all of these phases, this is called partial phase. Okay, anywhere where you see the yellow. Now, just before you see the diamond ring, this is the diamond ring, you'll see Bailey's beads, okay? When you see diamond ring, that's when you can take the glasses off.
So you should have them on that very beginning.
You should have them on even when you see that. So it's not until you have the diamond ring. And what that is, it's the last glimmer of the sunshine through the very deepest valley of the moon. And once that whoops, come back. Oh no, there we go. So once you see that, take the glasses off. You can have the glasses off all through totality. And then as the moon continues to move across the disk of the sun, you'll see the diamond ring reappear. That's when you put them back on. So as soon as that sun reappears, as soon as the corona starts to fade away, that's when you have them back on.
Thank you.
I should have brought some.
This question may seem a little bit odd, but what about the doomsdayers? You know, is that going to create this whole other level of craziness?
Crazy? Yeah.
They have said, you know, NASA has told us that you're going to have some of those people that it's going to be some, you know, experience for them. And so just to anticipate it, I don't know if it's a psychotic experience for them or what they're going to do with that, but that there are going to be some of those. So we'll see.
So I was watching a film, somebody posted, YouTube, from a 2010 Total Eclipse, and I forget where it was, I think it was in Australia or something, and they do crazy too. But just listening to the audio, they were on a big group, you hear a lot of rebel yells, a lot of whoa and cheering and all that kind of stuff, and then a lot of people are just almost reverential, like that, wow. And then some people, for them, it's like a sacred kind of thing. For some, it's a spiritual thing. For some, it's just this amazing natural phenomenon, and they're overwhelmed because of the beauty of it. You get just the whole gamut of reactions. Some people were crying. They said that, haven't experienced it myself, but folks that have say it really hits a lot of different people in a lot of different ways.
I'm a little worried about people shooting fireworks, which is a little strange, but remember it's going to be dark. So we could have fireworks in the middle of the day, but we'll see.
You mentioned NASA. What kind of numbers are they bringing? Obviously, they're probably going to bring quite a large crowd. Do you guys know if the estimated numbers with them?
They have, we met with the person from the Jet Propulsion Lab, which is down in Southern California. It's tied to one of the universities down there. They're going to be up, and their focus is going to be doing education with the Museum of Idaho. So I think they only have a few people, but all around that time. And I think, I can't remember, but I think in May is when the Museum of Idaho's Rome exhibit is going away, and then they're bringing in an eclipse exhibit. So it's going to be for some months, and then really focus right then. And then there's going to be a group that is doing monitoring. They have several sites, I think 4 or 5 sites around the country where NASA will have some monitors up. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of publicity on it. They're not looking for publicity, so I don't know where they're going to be located to do things. There's also a contingency about airspace because what they told us, one of the last ones to go, and I can't remember what year it was, we had an eclipse that went through part of Washington State, and then it was a weird angle, but went up to Canada, and they had a problem with the airspace. They had to eventually shut it down as it was going because private pilots were wanting to go up in the air and then chase it, and so stay in the totality as it was moving, and so it caused havoc with the airspace.
That would be a little tricky. The shadow moves supersonically.
Yeah, so they weren't successful, but they're trying to do that.
Any other questions? Good discussion.
You pointed out the websites, but are there community events that are going to be happening? I'm assuming if NASA's coming, there might be a presentation about it from an astronomer.
So on those websites will be where the venues are for the different communities. So for example, on the eclipse, it will say, Idaho Falls is having this concert, Museum of Idaho is doing this. I don't know if your event's up there yet.
Yeah, it will. Well, not that one. So if, say, let's say you're planning an event, and you could have that posted on the EI Eclipse, and it would be part of the community calendar for eclipse planning. The eclipse2017.org, that's not an Idaho-based website, but it does allow communities to post their events there as well. So if something's going on in crazy Mud Lake, Idaho, they can put that up there and invite the millions to come to their place.
Do you know what BYU Idaho's doing?
They have an eclipse site as well, and I believe that most of it's just observation. I don't think they're doing a festival or anything.
Yeah, and I think BYU Idaho's closed that day.
It's during their summer break.
Yeah, so but I'm not sure if they're renting out their dorms to people. So, I don't know.
Okay, well, we've had some really great discussion, and a lot of it has been centered on, what happens for your community, the education community, whether it's here or at the ISU campus. These are some of our planning actions. Now, one thing I wanted to ask about, for our public safety professionals here, are you familiar with Web EOC? Okay, are you on Web EOC?
Yes, we do use it. Yes, we do.
Okay, awesome, because the state has just set up, did you get the email, Eclipse?
I think we did get that, yes.
Okay, so if you watch the Eclipse event, and have that on WebEOC, that's where we'll be posting a lot of the incident action plans and situation reports, things like that. So that's going to be a major tool in regional coordination. And I think it's so important that we involve not just governments, but public health, our education, whoever is part of the emergency response, or even any kind of response at all, be involved with WebEOC. So that's kind of the center clearinghouse.
One of the things that we didn't mention before, but it's up there a little bit about, animals may react strangely to this event because they often react to weather as well. So dogs and other animals that you may have, you might want to address that they may have issues with this.
All right, you guys can read it. You don't need to read PowerPoint, but any other questions or items for discussion?
Just a couple questions, I guess, because it relates to the campus, but for the park, and I guess Taco's Park is the same, is that like booked camping, or is that first come, first serve?
I think it's both. I think they are booking those. I think you can go on the city's website and look about that. Parks and Rec is handling that, but I'm sure it's going to get booked to the point where then it is sold out.
Okay.
So,
do you have does it list on their sites like the number of camp slots and everything like that?
I believe so, yeah.
I should clarify something. On the bottom under prevent, coordinate with private providers for cows, cells on wheels. That's that's not cow,
That's what part of our contingency for the internet providers is
so
that
Verizon or Sprint is fine.
Yeah, you could have those come in and basically boost up the area for that. There's a price tag for those though.
Yeah.
Who's got your PowerPoint online so we can access it?
I don't. I can email it to Debbie. Would that be okay?
That'd be great.
Any other questions, comments? I think everybody knows how to get a hold of us, so if you have other questions that come up, you're welcome to, there it is. So you're welcome to get a hold of either one of us. We're anticipating that our incident action plan for that whole area command will be done in June. And we are actually going to exercise that plan probably in July, so we're going to have an exercise of communication with the counties in our area command. So that will be public, and we'll be getting out the word between June and August about what all the coordination stuff is, and so there'll be a lot more information coming out. And like I said, we hope we are over planning this, but that's what we do. So if that's going to be the case, we'll see how it goes. We have a lot of, in our county here in Bonneville, we're going to have a lot of practice coming up because we have our other events. We have the air show that's going to be before then, and the 4th of July that we have to plan differently now because it's going to move down to Snake River Landing. So So we have a couple of those kind of things going on this summer as well. There's also a motorcycle rally in our neck of the woods, POW rally. And you probably have a few things going up in your neck.
Oh, no, we like to keep it quiet, just watch what Bonneville's doing.
Car show, are they gonna have the?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
and
and
we signed up for that, so. maybe
Yes. So, when we first got word of, oh, there's an eclipse coming, I thought, oh, that's County Fair weekend. It is, and Mud Lake's smart, they do it before. And so we talked to the fair board, and they said, well, you know, the animals that the kids sell, those beef animals are already born, and they're born at a time to be ready during that week. And so they didn't move the county fair, which means the car show in Rigby, the Early Iron Show, will be running Friday, Saturday. They clear out Sunday. We do an eclipse on Monday. So, yeah, we still have that going on.
Okay.
One last thing I would mention to you too is that as much as we're planning and trying to do that, just recognize our capabilities are going to be much less. I mean, with the amount of people there, our resources, as mentioned before here too, our resources to be able to get to people are going to be taxed, and we're going to try to do the best we can. We're going to have all of our resources up and available, but an example of that is Mount Bora in Custer County. They have one ambulance there in that county. And so if a given day there's 100 hikers up on Mount Bora, that's one thing. If this day there's 5,000 and they have some problems, having one ambulance is going to be a problem. So, everybody's just going to do the best they can when it comes to that.
The thing that I see that we can really do here is to actually work on our incident action plan like right now to ensure that with you guys, but probably learn more about what your incident action plan is going to be so ours can feed into that, so we're not doing something differently from what the region is doing. But I really do see a need for that, and we are going to have to bring in resources from our main campus, and we'll work with Ray Hart and so forth. But we really do need to be meeting and coming up with an incident action plan for our campus to know exactly what we're going to do and who's going to do what, set up the goals and so forth. So I think we can work towards that.
Yeah, and if you need any help from us here, the county is involved in it too, and Sam Holtz, who's the undersheriff, is involved. From IFPD, Lieutenant Squires is, I don't know if you know Bill Squires, but he is involved in it. And then my Deputy Chief of Operations, Dave Coffey from the Fire Department, they're building the Bonneville plan, amongst others, so we'll be able to reach out to them too. Any other questions, comments? Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.